Welcome back. You're watching France 24. It's time now for Media Watch France with James Creedon, who's here with us in the studio. Good evening to James.
Good evening.
Happy day, James. There might be a baby born
lovely, isn't it?
to the Elysee.
We all love when a baby's
baby.
born. Yeah.
No less than a president who desperately needs a boost in his approval ratings.
It's all just a coincidence, but it probably is. But anyway, just to look at some of the coverage about this online, remember that this has been announced, the birth of Carla Bruni's baby, a number of times in the last 2 weeks. There have been false tweets, false starts, all sorts of false news, false alarms coming out. And here, this is one headline pointing to that. Endless giving birth on Twitter and in the media of Carla Bruni. And here is one of those false tweets. Now, that has been pulled up again and retweeted. This was actually...
Oh, I remember this. Yes.
Yeah, this was last Wednesday. Pal Sarkozy, that's Nicola's father, announces the birth of Vadim Sarkozy this Wednesday at 4:20 and giving the weight, the length, and saying that the mother is very well. So a very kind of convincing tweet, totally false. In Le Figaro, this is the article this morning that gave rise to all of the speculation today. It was the very first newspaper to say she's gone into the maternity hospital, looks like things are happening, and then Sarkozy, of course, was filmed going in.
And then leaving, not long after.
Busy guy has to head off to Frankfurt. And here they're being a little bit cynical in the Nouvel Observateur. They're saying, will you please just deliver us from all of this news? Ha ha ha, delivery being, giving birth, all of that. Accouchement encore annoncé, another announcement of the birth.
They can't keep this baby hidden forever, can they? Are they going to have to?
And you see, there's been a lot of speculation, conspiracy theories that maybe the baby was already born, but because the primary election was on last weekend, they kept it quiet because they didn't want this big media event to be overtaken by the socialists, so that they were going to choose the moment to announce it. I mean, that's pretty far-fetched. I'm not sure how they could keep it under wraps, you know.
But we are hearing that it might be a little girl, and that would be Sarkozy's first girl, wouldn't it?
That's right. He has several boys, 3 boys from 2 boys. I think 3
from his first marriage, one from
the second
marriage to Cecilia.
Right, and now the little girl, perhaps.
First
and here, look
Carla.
at this very cynical person on Twitter saying, Carla Nicola's little girl is going to be called Vote.
That's
and
not
of course,
very nice.
That is what some people are saying. Will the child be instrumentalised in the upcoming presidential election campaign?
Do we think that pram is going to be wheeled all over France?
Right. But the thing is, Carla Bruni has been very careful to say that they're not going to have any official photos, that this is, that they're not going to give interviews related to the birth of the child. So they're going to every effort to convince people that this is not going to be instrumental or used.
All right, okay, let's move on to something a bit more serious then, well, a lot more serious. Marie de Dieu, a 66-year-old disabled French woman who was seized by Somali militants earlier this month. We learned today that she'd most probably died.
That's right. It's a very sad story, and indeed all morning on the rolling news channels here in France, you had ministers coming out and speaking and saying that this was a barbaric act. Medicine had been they tried to get medicine to this lady who apparently had cancer, which they suspect wasn't passed on to her, and that is thought to be why she passed away. Anyway, in Le Monde, they're going through her life story, which is actually a fascinating life story. They speak about how she was a well-known feminist in the 70s in Paris. She signed a manifesto in 1971 saying that she had had an abortion. At the time, it was illegal. Abortion was legalized in France in 1975. She was one of 343 women to sign this manifesto. She was also a contributor to this magazine, Le Torche en Brûle, so a very militant feminist back in the 70s. She was also in a François Truffaut film called The Marital Home, a little bit more sort of staid and, but she played a prostitute in it. So she had a very kind of, active life in the 70s. Yeah. And then she was in a car accident in the early 90s, which left her paralysed from the waist down. Later on, she went to visit a friend in Kenya and actually began to walk again. It's a remarkable story. Something about this part of Kenya really, I suppose, touched her. She moved there and indeed set up life there 7 years ago, built a home in the traditional style. And I suppose we know how it ended, which is very sadly, but she did have a remarkable life, which the French media are going back over today.
Okay, all right. Now, there's also something going on between France and Algeria. Tell us a bit about that.
This is a bizarre story, and I suppose in light of the Arab Spring and the independence of, or I suppose, links between Arabic regimes and France, this one is getting some attention. It's in Rue 89, a left-leaning website. French public radio, is it promoting Bouteflika's regime in Algeria? Essentially, there's a festival in his hometown in Algeria. It's a small little town if I could find the name. That's it. There you go. It's a small town. Essentially, half of his ministers come from this town. A huge amount of senior officials. There's a festival going on there at the moment for an Islamic cultural festival. Basically, the French Foreign Ministry is paid for all of these French journalists to go over to cover it. And a lot of people are saying, look, this is ridiculous. It's not even a town with a particularly strong Islamic heritage. Why are French journalists covering this? It's crazy. It's clearly promoting Bouteflika's hometown.
Okay, let's end with something I know you love very much, an embarrassing tweet.
Yes, embarrassing tweet. We all love an embarrassing tweet.
Especially when they're by politicians.
That's right. This is the industry minister, Eric Besson, and he publicly tweeted, apparently you can privately tweet if you want, when I get home, I'm going to go straight to bed exhausted. Will you come with me? So that was clearly to his lady friend. Well, he's a much younger Tunisian lady friend, so that was probably who he was talking to. And here people are talking, saying they're... Do you know this always happens now when people make an embarrassing tweet? People,
it gets retweeted.
It gets retweeted, and
when will they learn, these politicians?
So they're saying, "I'm going to go home and have a shower, feeling very dirty." And you know, people just joking about it, basically.
Oh, fun!
Be careful what you tweet.
Exactly. All right, James Creedon, many thanks indeed. We'll have more headlines for you in a few moments. First, though, we're going to leave you with this. It's web news.